Just gonna give it a couple of minutes before we start. I'm a little early. Just want to make sure, test out technology, and be a little bit ready. Hello, thank you for joining. We're a little bit early. I'm gonna get started in about 2 minutes. Thank you. And for those of you just joining, we'll start in a couple of minutes. We're early. All right. Thank you all for coming and showing up. I'm Damian Kinsey. We're talking about the power of connections. So I want to first start out with a question. What is the best, worst, and funniest workshop that you ever attended? So I want you to think about the best workshop, the funniest, and the worst workshop you ever attended. You could write it down. I'll give you simple seconds, like 20 seconds to think about it. Yeah. Either in the chat or out loud. I want, can you put the best workshop that you ever attended, just the name of it? Oh, go ahead, Kimberly. I see your hand raised.
So I attended a workshop from April 24th or so for 6 weeks with Matthew McConaughey. And it was about Road to More. And it was so amazing because there was people from all over the world and talking about changing their careers and their life and all of these things. And it gave me a whole different perspective on what I want to do in my life. So that was one of the best ones. Um, The funniest one is that my family owns a tire and automotive place, and I kept telling my brothers that they should do one for women and for young high school kids to learn how to change a tire. And I didn't really pay attention. And about a week later, I had a flat tire and they were both out of town. So I had to change it by myself with the YouTube video.
Nice. I'll tell you a funny quick. I can relate to that. I'll tell you a funny quick story. The first time I ever learned how to change a tire, I was at a workshop, got a flat on a highway in the middle of nowhere, and they said it would take 2 hours for them to come. And it was on a lunch break of a workshop that I was attending for my job, and I just sat there and changed the tire myself. So I can definitely relate to that. Anybody else? Those people that's just joining us, we were talking about reflecting on the best workshop we ever attended, the worst workshop, and the funniest. I only want to hear about the best or the funniest workshops. Anyone else? You can put it in the chat as well, or just raise your hand and just come off mute. Dr. Farron?
The best one that I've recently attended, other than this one, because this one's the best, other than this one, was a trauma-informed conference that I went to, and I was actually able to present about 2 years ago. And it was just a really feel good, like, this is really funny. They had like great snacks. You know, when you go to a conference and there's like no, like you have to pay for that. They had like little stations midday. They brought out ice cream in the afternoon. They had fidgets for people. They had just lots of little self-care tools and, things like that in there, like weighted blankets to buy. Like, it was a really cool conference, and they thought of all the little things. And I like all those little details, like that made it a really great conference because you felt very comfortable there, but it was cool. They had like, breakfast served, and then they kind of rolled that out, and it was fun.
Nice. I can relate to that as well. My former job that I used to work at, they will always have us when we fly out, and anybody who had like, they call it like a pre-service or like onboarding workshop, and they will always have snacks, chips, cookies, bagels in the morning, popcorn. And it kind of like alleviates some of the stress of being at a workshop because you're not worried about being hungry. They have granola bars, nice. I can relate to that. One more. Anyone else? Elena.
All right, all this talk about food is reminding me of not the funniest content. The funniest content one was an employee relations conference led by Maxine Shapiro, who's a fantastic comedian and keynote speaker. And I think now she's got a podcast or something that you can find on LinkedIn. But one of my funniest moments at a very good, productive 3-day workshop, it was actually like advanced, it's going to sound like such a dry topic, advanced compensation planning or whatever, but it was so good because it was psychologically safe. Everyone was like, really, regardless of their level, was getting supported by everyone else in the workshop, and we had case studies and role plays and all kinds of stuff that was really good. But it came with one of the funniest moments. It was in New York City, and it was held at the Waldorf, a really nice hotel, but someone had made the bad choice of putting shelled hard-boiled eggs as one of the foods, and there were all these people walking around. It was like watching like clowns or something with these eggs rolling off their plates, trying to get back into the room. So it was like one of the funniest moments I ever experienced at a workshop, at one of the best, meatiest, learn the most from doing workshops I've ever attended.
Nice. That sounds like someone was having a practical joke going on there. And Kimberly talked about being allergic to shellfish. So sorry about that you had that experience. That's got to be awful.
I was presenting and my face just kept getting redder and swelling. My lips turned inside out and my eyelids. In Orlando, Florida, I'll never forget it. In front of like 1,200 people. But I don't eat shellfish, so I didn't know it was crab bisque or lobster bisque or whatever, because I don't know what it tastes like. I don't eat it.
Wow. Sorry you had that experience. And then my next question is, what do you expect to get out of this workshop or discussion? Anyone? What are your expectations?
How to make continue to make genuine connections. You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that without seeming like I'm trying to gain something from it, but to make a genuine connection?
So genuine connections without looking like you're a pitcher at a baseball game. Got you. All right, Elena.
For me, it is new making genuine connections in this very connected post-pandemic world. Like originally, my LinkedIn of over 500 connections were all people that I knew personally. I'd worked with, met, spoken with live in person, and the world is different. And so now it's about finding new and better ways to make these kinds of genuine connections in this new and different world.
Okay, virtual, the balance of virtual, in person, making those real, genuine, authentic connections that connect later on. That's a great one. Deanna.
I'm excited to hear more about what you've done as far as your connecting goes. I've noticed, even in the short time, but I've been in LinkedIn. I know I kind of like referenced you before as like this LinkedIn celebrity. That's kind of how it feels to me. But you've really built quite a network, and you seem to have put a lot of intention into the relationships that you've built. And so I assume that's something that's going to come forward in this presentation. So I'm excited to hear about it.
Okay, definitely. That's one of my goals, to try to answer that question, and also what Elena was saying about genuine connections. Dr. Sheila.
So basically, what everyone else is saying about building relationships that would help with intentional growth, not just for yourself, but for your personal and business growth. And I'm always very intentional about tapping into people who not only support my endeavors business wise, but who would help me to build myself up. I can build them up, and we can share ideas, and we can escalate and go to a whole nother level together. So I'm hoping you're going to give us some examples and some ways to do those things.
Thank you. That's what my intention is. Amber also said audio rooms are key. That's a great resource as well. So I'm gonna start right now. I'm share my screen and get into the presentation. Okay, the power of connections. I asked you the question about what was the best, the worst, and funniest workshop you ever attended. You answered that. We also talked about the discussion about what do you expect to get out of this. My career is, I could have started this off with who I am, what I do, but I didn't want to bore you with that. My career is about always helping people and putting effort and energy into that. So I wanted to start with connecting with you and figuring out what are those things that you like to do. So that's why I started out with what is your best, your worst, your funniest. I think when you're having connections with people, it's about connecting with them first instead of being about what you want and what's going on with you. So my history, I got into LinkedIn I had it years ago. One of my colleagues put it together as you got to get on LinkedIn. They created the page for me. It sat there forever. I never used it. About 2 years ago, I started using LinkedIn because one of my a former employee, a gentleman who I mentored, said, "Hey, you might want to get on LinkedIn, build your connections. I know what you're trying to do. You work with kids and families. You want to build up your resources." So he kind of walked me through it. It's kind of like paying it forward. And he had me get on LinkedIn. I got on LinkedIn. And I kind of had to tug of war with it for the first 6 months of it and trying to build my network. I was like, no, yeah, no. And that's kind of what the history of it. And then about a year and a half ago, I finally said, hey, because I was out building relationships in the community, going to workshops, networking, seminars, the Chamber of Commerce, free events, paid events, and going to those things. And then I said to myself, I'm going to use social media because that's something else I need to kind of work on and hone my skills on. So that's what it kind of got into. And then as far as connecting and learning how to connect and network, the person that I kind of honed some of my skills to is this individual who I think is by far the science of best connecting that I ever physically seen in my life, Dr. Lee Gabay. School teacher I worked with, he would always, I worked at a juvenile justice school, and I was the director of the juvenile justice school. He would bring in so many vast people and professionals from so many walks of lives, mid-tier, blue collar, celebrities into our school to find these services and supports in these communications for kids in the juvenile justice system. And I would have conversations with him about networking and how does he bring people in, and he talked about it, and I would sit there and listen. And what he did naturally, I was able to start breaking it down into a science of what it is and kind of honing my skills with that. So I want to talk about that. So kind of like what I talked about earlier, building genuine connections. They come from talking to people, having real conversations, invest in the interests of the likes, the dislikes, the hobbies, and the personalities, having coffee chats, which are conversations over a virtual environment or in person, a coffee chat. Investing in people beyond what they can do for you or what you can do for them. So a lot of people say like they get these inboxes from people or DMs from people about we're connection, they're trying to sell us something. And they're like, oh, they're pitching, I don't want to talk to them. The salesperson. What I found is that the salespeople are still human beings. They're trying to find a way to do their job in a way where they're trying to connect. And a lot of times they don't know how to connect, so we kind of brush them off. I've met so many people through sales pitches that they've given me and built genuine connections that long term I was able to connect other people with, because that person who's doing, let's say, for instance, a sale and they're trying to sell software, has so many layers to them beyond being a software person and so many other second and third level connections that they're able to help other people. And me being invested in the conversation with them and using that time and effort approach, I'm able to learn so much of what's going on in their lives and remember what's going on and then say, hey, okay, I might be in an audio room in LinkedIn and I hear something and say, oh, okay, I can connect you with this individual who under normal circumstances and most circumstances with people, they don't want to connect with because they feel like it's pitching. And then things are tools. The thing about being the power connection is that it don't happen. You don't connect with people from text messaging. You think about it. I want you to change. If you think that's the way, I want you to change your mind a little bit, shift just a little bit, not fully, just a little bit. You don't connect with people through text messages, emails, memes, emojis, DMs, and like their products and their jobs. What happens is those are just tools. Look at them as tools of maintenance to maintain the relationship. Text messaging to maintain a relationship. Emails to maintain a relationship. Memes and emojis to maintain a relationship. The DMs to maintain the relationships. And then third-party introductions maintain the relationships. If you have someone who's able to help someone else, but they don't serve your interests as far as your career and what's going on, and you know this other person can help someone else, why not pass them on to the next person who's needing help and support? A lot of times we don't do that third-party connection. And we'll hold the resource that is not valuable to us, but is valuable to somebody else. And that's why those tools are important, those text messages, those emails. And then before I get to honing your elevator speech. When you're texting and emailing, happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, happy Father's Day, happy holidays, Thanksgiving, remembering those things that are going on. If their kid has a soccer game, I have a connection. Her grandson plays baseball, so they can't attend my audio events. But when I send out the reminder to her, I say, hey, just in case you can't attend, and I say good luck with the baseball game for your grandson. And then after the game is over, the next day, I always check to see if he didn't get hurt during the game and was he safe and did they win. And then I ask her, did he have fun and did you have fun? Those things are important with people. We're not always able to do that. I've been blessed with a great memory, so I can remember so many things. There's so many little things and nuances, down to like, sometimes I can remember like somebody sat somewhere 6 years ago, or what they wore, like color-wise. And people were like, you remember that? Or little stuff during conversations that people think were minor to them, which were big and stood out to me, that I'm able to remember during a conversation. But write it down. In the course of my career, I've always had a great memory. I've learned to start writing things down. And I changed my approach by writing things down, because the person who I'm talking to wants to feel like I have an invested interest. And the reason why I don't use my phone or my laptop or my computer, because I don't want people to feel like I'm looking on social media, I'm scanning Amazon Prime. I want people to feel that I'm connected to them. So I write it down in my book, even though 9 times out of 10, anybody who knows me, I'm going to remember it anyway. But I write it down because I want to make sure that I'm invested in the conversation. And it starts with honing your elevator speech. Your elevator speech is so important and so key. Sorry. And the elevator speech is so important and so key because it starts everything off. The elevator speech needs to be true, honest, things that actually factually happen. It needs to be relatable. It needs to be simple and memorable. I'm a math person. My philosophy is everything can be broken down to its simplest form. That's why I like math. When I'm having stories and conversations, like if you were in the last room I had, I talked about the little engine that could. It's simple, relatable, memorable, and it's true. These things you can fact check. And then when you're going with your elevator speech, it needs to be 3, 5, or 10 words long. 3, 5, and 10 words long. And I'm gonna explain that in a little while. And you want to make sure that you're engaging when you're using your elevator speech. I say this, you want to have a 30-second elevator speech and a 2-minute and 20-second elevator speech. So your 30-second speech is in and out. Your 220 is longer conversations where you know that you can be able to get to 220. But those 310 are so important. So, for example, at my previous employer, if I had a conversation about what they do and you ask me about the organization, I tell people, if you see here, it says 5KR. So I worked at an organization for a nonprofit that had over 100 years of experience. I always would tell people it started with 5 kids of rocking a fight. It's under 10 words. It's true. It's relatable, simple, and memorable. And it makes people ask, let me learn more about the 5 kids of rocking a fight. So Damian, Kinsey, how did you get into this? So I have over 26 years experience in nonprofit work in organizations. My career has been based on every level of healthcare, juvenile justice, school-based, community-based, court-appointed, you name it, after-school programs. And I tell everybody it started with this. It started with an internship in high school. I had to do 75 hours. I did 480 and never looked back. Under 10 words, 75 hours, internship, 480, and never looked back. My current employer, her organization started with a traveling table, an eye injury, and a woman in the tech field. Under 10 words. So honing an elevator speech is important. It connects people to the conversation, short, key, to the point. And I challenge you to start writing your 30-second, your 2-minute and 20-second. And if you have one, work on it, tailor it, record it, critique yourself, get a third-party feedback from it. So now, hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing and ask any questions. Any questions on your elevator speech before I move on? Let's see, we have stuff in the chat. All right. Okay, call it eye opener. It was just comments. No questions? All right, cool. Moving on, elevator speech. I'm gonna share the screen again. All right. So now, that same gentleman I talked to you about, Mr. Lee Gabay, I watched him, Dr. Lee Gabay. He had what I came up with a process called PICK. Picking their brain, inviting conversation, and circling back, the PICK. And it's a terminology from basketball. It's like the pick and roll. So it's about inviting someone to have a conversation with them, to pick their brain, and then circling back with them. Oftentimes we're often hesitant to have a conversation with people and invite them to have a one-on-one. And then we don't follow up after we have the conversation. So it's key and important. And then the flow of the conversation is key. It has the flow, and it's a format to the flow of the conversation and the way it looks. And the key of it is the 60-40 rule. 60% of your conversation should be listening to what the other person has to say. 40% of your conversation should be about what you have to say. And your 40% should be 20% reiterating and reaffirming what they're saying, and then 20% about what you have to say. Think about this, the beginning of this conversation. It started with, what is the funniest, the best, and the worst workshop that you attended? And it wasn't about me and my experiences. Once you told me what it was, I reframed some of it to relate to what went on to me, to build that connection. So make sure we're spending 60% of our time is listening instead of talking, and the 40% is 20 reframing and 20% on what your experiences are. The 60-40 rule. And you should be able to approach it like tennis, serve and volley, back and forth, back and forth. So it's like a give and take and back and forth of reframing information and sharing. Some of these pictures here are people who are connectors. People know them from two different avenues of life and what they do. You have Oprah Winfrey, TV host and a mogul. You have Taylor Swift, songwriter, singer, personality, and even her ability to sing, and it connects to her relationships and her writing. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, goes from wrestling to acting, personality, and everyone's favorite, Mr. Rogers. You know, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Something that's relatable, memorable. The Sweater, memorable, relatable, And the way he talked and soothed you and made you comfortable is a skill. And you think about Mr. Rogers, you think about the cadence of Oprah, you think about Taylor Swift music, you think about The Rock. Soothing, relatable, personable, and likable. That is how you want your connections to be. And then connections versus numbers. I never talk about how many people I've met and connected on LinkedIn. So this might be one of the only times I'm going to say this. In 16 months of me not really, as I would say, going aggressively or hard, I've made almost 11,000 connections. And it was about honing those connections and having those genuinely looking to see and try to learn from people and understand what they're going through and what's going on. Because the bigger picture was, I work with so many families and kids and grandparents and siblings, uncles, aunts, and schools that the broad stroke of their levels of professionalism and spectrum of professionalism expanded so long that I couldn't just limit it to the fact that I'm a director of community and school programs. I needed to know what the pharmacist did because I had a family and a parent was a pharmacist. So when I'm meeting with her and I'm coaching my team, that I can be able to explain that. Medical, sleep apnea, things of those nature. When I'm having conversations with family, I need to know that. And you don't get that from staying in your own field. You get that from expanding your environment to learning and genuinely getting into other people's fields. That's why when I host audio rooms and we do audio rooms, myself and Jackie Holberg, and we do Wishful Wednesday, there's a doctor, there's a lawyer, there's a professional doctor, there's a the fire person, the TV person, the person who answers the phones, the janitor, the sales, the tech, the CEO are all in the room because communities don't start with one person. It starts with a collective of people, and we expand in our bubble. The person who lives next door to you isn't just, if you're a teacher, isn't just a teacher. So that's how we have to look at our communities and connections and numbers. And with that said, I do this all the time. Look through your phone and see how many connections you have in your phone. Look on your social media. All I have is LinkedIn. That's the only social media app I have. How many social media connections you have? And then look at how many of those are genuine connections. How many of those phone call numbers are genuine connections? Those are the things I'm gonna task you to do. How many of your social media connections are genuine connection? If you can't say at least 33, my rule of thumb is 33 to 40% always. If you can't say 33% of those people are genuine connections, then you have to evaluate, should you keep them or should you start targeting and reaching out to them and start building those genuine connections? I have supervised, developed, mentored, coached over 300 people. Everybody who I've ever supervised, and I kid you not, and I thought about this, it's probably about 3% of the people who I've ever supervised in my 26 years in my career. 3%, I would say, I can't get on the phone and call them. And that's because I have no contact with them at all. They passed away. And those are the biggest reasons why. Now, for the other 97% of the people, and anybody who knows me knows that I can get on the phone literally right now with 97% of them and answer the phone and get on the phone with them and call them and ask them, and they'll answer the phone. And people always say, why do you still have connections with these people? Why do you still connect with them? Because when we're doing business and we're working together and I'm working with kids and families, that connection of those difficult kids when I was in juvenile justice, after school program, And I tell people the hardest job I've ever had in my life was a hard to place group home for girls. And I did that for 4 years. And the reason why that was so hard is because there was limited rules, and anybody who knows anything about hard to place group homes, they're sent there by the state, and there's no way you could put them. They can't go home. They have family members that want them, but they cannot go home to them. They've been in and out of foster care homes so much that they can't go to foster care homes. And then it was like limited behavioral modification tools in place with them. And that was one of the hardest jobs I had. So when I looked at that in my young career, if I'm building that connection and I'm in an environment where we're trying to home and shape young people with these individuals I work with, these relationships are important and valuable. So connecting with them is important. Listening is important. Retaining this information is so important. Understanding their perspectives and what motivates them is key. I know one of our speakers talked about empathy. Empathy is a tool and a skill. And it's so true. It's a motivator as well. Following up with DMs, emails, birthday, text messages. These are all tools. And then revisiting. And then the in and out method of approach. Remember, 3 to 5 words, 10 maximum. Target, pitch, range. Targeting, who are you talking to? Varying your pitch and understanding, meaning optics up and down, to keep the conversation flowing and going, in your range, where you want to go with the conversation. Start with an opener. 75 hours, 480, never look back. 5 kids are rocking a fight. 2 key points. You want to make sure you have 2 key points. It's no different from writing an essay when you're elementary school, middle school. You want 2 key points. Reflections. Reflect, close the loop. Get them to be able to think about it. And then you want to close the loop. And I'll talk about reflection and close the loop soon. And with that said, I'm going to stop the sharing. Any questions? What? Questions? Come on. I'm here for another 10 minutes. And I'm
gonna
going.
jump in. Damian, you were, of course, one of my biggest connections in terms of opening me up to like speaking engagements and audio rooms and things like that. One of the things that I think is so powerful about your connections is you never know when one connection is going to lead into opening your world in so many times. So I want to give you a thank you, first of all, for doing that to me and so many others on LinkedIn, but also sharing your knowledge today. And then my question for you is, were you tempted to go on other social medias? Did you just leave other social medias once you realized the power of LinkedIn? Or do you just, is that your way that you have a boundary from other things seeping into your world? Or how do you do that?
So as far as other social media sites, I've never in my life had Instagram. I've never in my life had TikTok. I had Twitter for 5.2 minutes when it first came out. And I had Facebook for 2 hours and 12 seconds. And I was off social media for a very long time. My career is social services. I am a communication major. I didn't want to deal with social media. I was reluctant to even be on LinkedIn. But leading is also listening. So someone who I supervised, mentored, and taught, it was an opportunity for him to mentor me, supervise, and teach me. And he was telling me that because I was building connections outside, because of some of the stuff I was doing, it's a global world. LinkedIn is a great opportunity. And like I said, I was reluctant for the first 6 months. So that account sat on the shelf so long that I had no clue. It was attached to my work email. And my coworker, who's a social worker, clinical social worker, she was the one who created the account. She created it without my permission, and a few other of my friends, and they just sat there forever. So I hope that answers your question.
They came here to put in the baseboards,
Oh, okay.
but there's no baseboard to put in. They never left them anything, so I said, okay, we'll come back. Okay.
Somebody's off mute. Question? Who's next? I have a question. So how do you implement this process moving forward? Oh, Elena, go ahead.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. I'm very curious because obviously 11,000 is a lot of connections and you're not a numbers guy. And so I'm just curious, how organically did that happen and how much was intentional? Like, I love meeting people. I'm a woo, like, so I love to meet people and find out about them. And I love putting the right people together, making introductions. But and I definitely see you as that kind of person. But like, when I think 11,000 people, I just get overwhelmed, because I like to have those touch points and, I give a crap about the people I'm connected with. And so I'm really curious, like, how do you manage being connected with that many people, and how did it end up with you connected to that many people?
So the number, nobody really knew what the number was until Jackie decided to tell everybody the number. But the number, it didn't start getting hard until around like 9,700. It was easy for me to manage, relatively easy. I was able to always respond to everyone's DMs, follow up with people, talk to people, connect. That's one. And B, it happened in threefold. Having conversations and being in audio rooms, or just having regular conversations with people and individuals, and then people connecting with you, and vice versa, connecting with people who had interests, or I feel like I can, okay, here's somebody I can connect them with. I can connect them with Amber, and reaching out because I'm sitting in a room as a student, and that's what I call it, being a student in the room, and hearing that there's a connection, and I have the connection and resource and connecting them. And then in turn, those people will connect me with other people. So that would happen just organically. And then we all have those, oh, this is a great person to connect with on your page. And looking at them and saying, all right, this person keeps coming up my feed. Let me check and look. And like, okay, this person has an interesting career, or this is a career where it fits, where I have a parent or family that I work with that I might need to invest more information. And then the other part was, I got a lot of people trying to request me and sending me emails, and then I saw that was the third one. Then the last thing was followers. I went from following to connecting. I'm a firm believer in, I'm not a celebrity. I don't get paid to be on social media, so I don't have followers, I have connections. So if you're following me, I connect with you, and then I follow up with you. I think it's kind of untraditional and a little bit different for me when someone is following me. It's kind of like you're like peeking in my window. So I'd rather say, hey, you're looking in the window, come on in the house and let's talk. And then I'll meet with them, and they'll say, okay, let's have a coffee chat. Or I'll say, hey, let's have a conversation, a virtual coffee chat, and have a conversation. And then I always start with, I want to learn more about you and what you do. Because those two things are totally different. What do you do for a living, and who you are as an individual is what I want to know about you. And that keeps the connection. So I make sure if I'm connecting with someone, I explain, I want to learn more about you and what you do. And then sometimes you'll go to my website, and that'll just tell me what you do for a living. It doesn't tell me who your personality is and how you are as an individual. And those things happen.
Well, I know that
Question.
I get requests, but now I like, before I accept a connection request. I'm looking at what are they commenting on? What are their comments? What are they posting? You know, that kind of stuff. I don't judge people by how many people they're connected with or where they are in their career, but I do care most about what are they saying that's reflecting who they are as a person.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I have friends who have 950 connections total, and their message is so impactful. And then I have a friend, like a literal friend, who has 46,000 connections. And every time she does something, she'll get 500 connects. And I know her off of LinkedIn. And the person who does 950 still gets 500 as well. So that's why the numbers are not really important. And there's people on this call like Amber. Like Amber had 1,000 and she did this post, and there's no way Amber could keep up on that post she did. It's no way.
You made a comment, you keep up with your DMs up until 9,700, and I went from 1,200 to, in 2.5 months, I've gone from 1,200 to 2,500 or 2,400. And I get anywhere from 50 to 300 emails a day. I am never caught up on emails. I currently have emails that are over a month old that I can't even get to because I have 17 more with requests right now that are right now requests that need to be answered. And then I'll have like 4 more that I'll go back to. Is like, oh, you wanted to have me on a podcast 2 months ago? Sorry, missed that email. You want to schedule it now? Because I can't get to it. And I am so much like you about intention that I won't leave those. Like I have to go back and check. And half the time, or not half the time, a third of those are pitches. And then I'll say like maybe 10% of those are thank you for connecting. Hope you have a great day. And that's all that they had to say. But I'm going to make sure I go back and check that email, that there wasn't a question, that there wasn't more information that they were trying to get from me. And then I'm going to follow that back up with something. Even if it was generic for them, I'm still going to follow that up. And sometimes I hate that because if I'm doing 75 in an afternoon, I might respond to 75 people and those 50 of those people come right back. And I'm like, oh, wait, which conversation was that? Let me go back and like, I'm like tagging as I'm like, oh, I clicked out 50 of them and then I'll have 75 more. And it's like, wait, I thought I was cleaning some of the emails out. So like, I need a virtual assistant at 2,400, Damian. I don't know how you did it till 9,700. That's nuts.
I did a lot of serve and volley as well. But I guess I was lucky. The same job I had with the gentleman I talked about, I would get 450 a day emails from work. And working in the city with New York, in city of New York, it's a different culture of when someone sends you an email, you have to respond within 5 to 10, 15 minutes. So getting 450 and getting through those every single day and working a 24-hour job, that was just normal reps. So if somebody sent me something in the DM, it was just easy for me to keep up. But now it's getting a little bit harder to keep up with. And I do feel like Amber sometimes, and it's like, you know, kind of hard, and I feel bad that I can't get to people, but I do get to them eventually. Elena, I know we have 5 more minutes. Elena.
Just a question for you and for everyone in the group. Like, are there any tips and tricks or something that people are using? Since on LinkedIn, it is this robust, amazing tool, but where it lacks is that we can't manage those DMs like we can an email inbox. So like the more you get, it's just pushing everything else down. And so I don't know if anyone's gone analog, if they're making lists or if they're cutting and pasting into Excel or something to help them manage who they're responding, you know, so that they don't lose sight of the people that they want to respond to, whatever. I want to hear what's working for people.
So you can, they have the bell, but they also have a star where you can star some people in there. It's funny because I had so we have audio events, we send them out, and then I send out the invite. So it's about 400 people. And I remember this gentleman saying, are you using AI? Are you doing this yourself? I was like, yeah, I'm doing this myself. And he was like, wow, like, how do you send all those out? I'm like, it's just, I think it's easy to me because most of it is like, you have your generic copy and paste part. And then you have your parts where you're like, okay, these conversations, because you know the individual and you kind of make them tailor to those when you're sending them out. But I want the connection, so I'm not using like a AI version of anything, because I want those connections with people. I want to be able to say, hey, how's your kid doing? Or how are you feeling today? And have those genuine connections. But it's ways of doing it. And then after a while, it becomes like a rep, and like anything else, like tying your shoe, you get easy, comfortable with it. But after a while, like Amber says, I can imagine somebody with 200,000 connections. They have like 4 or 5 assistants. I know, like I'm telling you, I know somebody with a whole bunch of connections. They have 2 or 3 assistants. I'll take one more, and then I have to close the room because I know it's on time. And I appreciate everyone. One more brave soul. Come on. Going once, going twice. Soul.
Hi, Damian.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Go
you got
ahead.
it. She can
But
go.
okay, this is Dr. Sheila. I don't really have a question, just a comment. Just listening to you, and even the first time I heard you, I said it's something about your voice and your demeanor that just grabs people. And so, I looked you up on LinkedIn immediately and sent out, a connection. And so I could see how you have those people, and I'm learning and I'm watching, and I always study people to see their behaviors and their demeanor and all those things so I can model them and emulate the things they're doing to help build my connection. So kudos to you. And I would love to connect with you more to help propel my LinkedIn and my relationships to higher heights. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. And my parents thank you too, because they told me you have to be the same person, regardless of any room you're in and whoever you're around. And you have to look yourself in the mirror. And I always pride myself on being a genuine person. So thank you for that, Dr. Sheila. Noah, you had something, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and I wasn't here for your whole thing about connections, but I know connections are so important. I'm on a lot of social medias, and as far as LinkedIn goes, I am not so familiar with it yet. I want to get more familiar with it, but definitely I have a lot of people sending me messages trying to sell me things, and it's not really like the first way that you want to connect with somebody, right? You want to make a genuine connection. And there's so many people that are just like they're like in a scarcity mode, right? Let me see what I can sell somebody. So how are you able to navigate that?
So you wasn't here earlier. I talked partly about it. I love salespeople. They're great people. The sales are just part of their job. There's a human underneath all that. And it's kind of hard for somebody who's trying to maintain their job and they're pitching and trying to sell you. But I have those conversations with them to learn about who they are and the human of them. And I always put it in my back pocket to connect them with somebody who can actually benefit from their sales. And when I look at people who do sales, there's an opportunity to get comfortable virtually in conversations. So when it's time to do public speaking or do things, you're comfortable having those conversations. You're able to practice your back and forth, your 60-40 serving volley with them. Because they're trying to sell you something. And it's a lot about listening and then be able to respond and then be able to get who you are across. And if you can build a genuine connection with someone who is, as they're saying, pitching, you can build a connection with anybody almost. So look at it as an opportunity to learn more about someone else, invest and build a relationship, create a connection for an opportunity for someone else, and also practice your skills. I hope that helps. I know we're over time, Dr. Farron and Annika, sorry.
We just hopped on in. We just saw you were still going, so we jumped in.
Any other questions, comments, or anything else before we wrap up?
Jackie, I thought had a comment. Jackie, do you have a comment? I don't know. I thought you.
Oh, Jackie was, I think, saying goodbye. Okay. With that said, I thank Jackie, who's not here, Amber for being here, Deanna, Noah, Annika, Dr. Tanya, Dr. Chilla, Kathy Ann, Heidi, Elena, Phyllis, Christina, Ziamara, Pia, for coming out and attending the summit. The great part about the summit is this is the first of many. You get the recordings. You can take pieces of it, use it, get rid of it, take it, create your own, put a twist on it, and learn from the situation. And also build your own presentation of what you want to do for the summit. In your own summit, your own presentation, your own conversations. And the other great part about it is you have this network of people who attended the summit. I encourage you to follow them on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media platform they have, and build those connections. And for me, I'm probably connected with most people in this room. If I'm not connected to you, reach out. And the thing about me is I'm not afraid to have a conversation with people. If there's anything that you or feel like I'm big enough to not talk to you, reach out, say, hey, I want to talk to you. I got a question. I respond really quick because of my I guess, mental conditioning from back home. So I'll respond, and feel free to reach out. Thank you. Dr. Farron, you want anything to say in closing since it's your summit?
I finished this. I spent half the time in your room, half the time in Anthony's, and I wrapped it up the same way. I wished I would have created a session where I could have just said thank you to everyone at the very end. So I'm going to take this opportunity to thank everybody for coming today, attendees, presenters. My vision for this was that this was going to be spectacular, and you guys already exceeded that expectation of it being spectacular. So whatever's beyond spectacular, spectacularistist, I don't know. Maybe we just made up a new word, but this was just mind-blowing. The day has flown by. I can't believe the day is over. I can't believe we're done with it. Like, thank you so much. And Damian is right. We are going to put another one on in March, at least. I mean, we're doing March, and we want to continue moving forward with this because this has value. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And I loved meeting you all. And the same thing as Damian, if we haven't officially connected, please connect. And what I wanted to say at the beginning of his session, one of the things that has been really helpful for me to meet other people is I put my Calendly link. I really truly mean that. If you want to set up a 30-minute meeting, just to chit chat, get to know each other, please do that. Put that on my calendar. There doesn't have to be a reason, we can just get to know one another. And so that has been really huge for me. I've really enjoyed meeting people and it's been fun to do that and connect with them down the road. So thank you for doing that. And thanks for being here, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you have a lot of great takeaways from today. Thanks, Damian, for a beautiful room and all your support.
Oh, and one more thing. The reason why this background is here is because it's a global world out there. So many beautiful things, beautiful people. Connect, connect, connect. Thank you.